Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! INDY!
43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up, got it! Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, everybody. Welcome aboard. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you on this Tuesday, January 30. Appreciate you being with us. Thanks a lot. On the program today, Mike DeCourcy will join us, Chronic Hoosier. Anyone else on the docket?
Maybe Mike Niziolek. Haven't confirmed.
Oh,
but
Mike
maybe some
Niziolek.
Mike Niziolek too.
Yes. From the Bloomington Herald-Times. And we will hear from Kevin Boyle, the head coach at Montverde Academy, in which Jalen Hood came from, Malik Renew came from, Liam McNeely is coming from, potentially Dairy Queen. And I'm going to give you my opinion on that now. As a matter of fact, John, I would like for you to, when you have the time, pull up in talking to Liam over the weekend, I asked him a question about, when watching Indiana, does he see how he and his game might help Indiana once he gets here? And off to the side, you can hear someone else respond first. We'll get that pulled up. So, but lots to get to, lots to talk about. Great games last night, man. I watched that Houston and Texas game. Went to overtime, and Houston pulled it out. I'm telling you, if Houston and UConn are not in the Final Four, I will be shocked. Those are my only two Final Four locks. Locks or shocks, baby. It's locks or shocks. The other two, I don't care. I will pick Kansas to get beat, as they did again last night, I believe. They are just a good team.
Kansas didn't play last night, but they did lose over the weekend to Iowa State.
What it was. But they're just they're a good team, but man, they're just beatable as hell. And so Arizona is one of those good teams, but beatable. I'm going to be shocked if UConn or Houston does not win a national championship. They're just tough. They're tough teams. That's the difference. They play tough. They gritty. It doesn't matter where. Winning on the road in overtime in Texas, not easy to do. And that just continues to show how mentally and physically tough that they are. How's everybody doing? Appreciate everybody jumping on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. Of course, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, powered by Andy Moore Honda. Go to andymorehonda.com to get more to your door. Kent jumping on from Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Fred down over in Easton, Pennsylvania. Russell. Mrs. Jalen Hood. Mike Shenanigans gives us a howdy from southern Wabash County. Las Vegas Larry's on board. Jeffrey Todd on from Carrollton, Kentucky. Brian S. The athletic department should be selling Google Me t-shirts. Dude, don't say that. That's my idea. Don't say that out loud. No one has done it yet. I can't believe. And I told Pete, if Pete would be listening, I wanted those made ASAP. I'm gonna have them. I'm gonna have it done. If I gotta just go do it myself, I'm gonna do it. That'd be cool to put the ISB logo on, right? I win. Google me. Love it. Speaking of which, we do have Indiana Sports Beat radio t-shirts, hats available if anyone were to want one for purchase. Just $20, I think, plus shipping. Five Lefts, how are you, sir? He jumps on. What did I talk about the tournament, John?
I don't know what he's referring to.
Yeah, I don't either. Not for Indiana, I don't. Hello, Mike from Miami County. And Jesse, it says if we went out, stop. Can I stop right there? I will just stop right there. If you're talking about Indiana men's basketball, they couldn't win out of a paper bag. I'm sorry, Jesse. I'm not trying to be negative, but let's get to reality here. Win out. How many games in a row have you seen this team win? They have how many games left? 11? That's an impossibility. That is just an absolute impossibility for this team, without question. And I'm not going to get into that, but they should be way better than they are. But that's not. Oh, well. Brian, would Indiana fans rather have Kelvin Sampson hang a banner or Purdue? Yeah, there's a good question. That should be an easy no-brainer. But some Indiana fans are so obstinate or obtuse that I don't think they can see the forest for the trees on this situation. The fact that people continue to hate on Kelvin Sampson cracks me up. He's the best coach that's been hired at Indiana since Bob Knight, bar none, without question. Why do you think Houston's having the success they're having and have had? Are you kidding me? That's not even, to me, that's not even that if I were looking at it as a fan, there wouldn't even be a hesitation. Why people are still hung up on this Kelvin Sampson thing, I don't get it. They want to blame Kelvin Sampson for whatever. It's the Indiana administration that you should be beaten on. Gee whiz. Richard says if UConn wins, it will give them 6 national titles. Yes, it will. Not only that, it will give them 6 national titles in like the last 26, 7 years. That's unprecedented. Until you'd have to go back to UCLA for that kind of a run. That would be bigger than Duke's. Or does Duke have 5 or 6? They might have 6. Brian said he just typed it. I'm the one that said it out loud. Hey, man, I got to read it. Derek on from Owensboro. How are you this morning, sir? Or today, sir? I appreciate you. Robert says, yep, Kelvin Sampson, that awful coach, the destroyer of IU basketball. How did he destroy Indiana basketball? I really would. I'd love for someone to explain to me how he destroyed Indiana basketball. Was or was not Indiana the top-ranked team with the overall number one seed within their reach until they lost to Michigan in 2013? It's an easy yes or no question. The answer is yes, they were. Therefore, what's destroyed? You're number one in the country. What's destroyed? Nada. That argument is so weak. That's like trying to hold water in a net. No shot. Sorry, but I disagree. And it's just a place for people to put their anger, in my opinion, which means not much. Loading says the team is what it is. Season's over. This team is what they are. They are what we thought they were. We let them off the hook. His next post was reality. Well, I've got to go back to that. Which was his next post? There you go. He says, but they won't win out, so it doesn't matter. There you go. Absolutely. 5 Laughs, I appreciate you, brother, as always. Giving a shout out to me and John. Got some neighbors chatting it up, getting together there. Mike Shenanigans and Mike Ham. Oh, it's the Mike Club. How about that? 2 mics. Jeffrey says Indiana basketball needs to focus on keeping the role players like Gunn and Banks out of the portal. McKenzie will be in the portal the first opportunity he has. You might have 10 new players again. I can see Banks going into the portal for certain. I would only see Gunn going into the portal if he felt that he was not being developed. If he thought that that was not of his making. I can't predict and won't predict that on that one. Mackenzie Mbako, not sure. I'm sure he has a very, very, very healthy NIL situation set up. Yeah, loading. Kelvin must have people see him as the devil. Dude, this is another thing. All right, yes, he got caught for making these stupid ass phone calls. A rule that was changed the following year because it was so benign. Yet while all of that was going on, North Carolina was cheating their ass off. Duke was cheating their ass off. Kansas was cheating their ass off, but not by making phone calls, by what we truly call cheating, still to this day. Well, no longer now that you can pay them. And it was nothing compared to that. But yet, everybody acts like he shot the entire team or something. You wish he was your coach right now. I can guarantee you that. If not, then you're not as intelligent in basketball as you might think you are, is my take on that. 5 Left says, honestly, he was hurt when Sampson screwed up. Well, now that I get. That I absolutely get. I kind of, it makes you wonder what it's a what the hell were you thinking, you moron? You had a golden opportunity at a place that, oh my God, he could have rocked it at Indiana. I mean, rocked it. He went to a place that has not, and Houston had to build that up. He would have just killed it at Indiana. probably and possibly by now, he may have won 2 national titles. But that's just pure speculation.
Break.
We've got to take a break. Happy birthday to Tom Izzo. 70th birthday. Should have brought some cake. Mike DeCourcy joins us next here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East, where tomorrow is that? No, tonight after the game, post game. We'll talk about that more later. We'll be back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. Oh, more spy gates. That's crazy.
Morning, Mike.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, guys.
Spygate 2, baby. Or I guess that'd be Spygate 3. Iowa State, Altenberg calls out K-State's spying accusations ludicrous.
Yes.
Oh, my God. I can't believe that. I just saw that. I'm laughing. I was like, are you kidding me? Oh, basketball happens a little too fast, I think, for that to make a difference. And
yeah, I'm not sure what the value of that would be.
it just happens so fast, and it's always so liquid.
Yeah.
There's just, I mean, I'd like to have seen someone try to steal signs when Bob Knight was running the motion offense. There's nothing you can steal. He would tell you, well, here's what we're going to do. And there's nothing you can do to stop it. Would have pulled a great Larry Bird. He was the ultimate sign giver. There's nothing I love more than those stories. But the thing that makes them great is hearing the people that it happened to telling the story. I mean, they are just like, man, I was a rookie and he had me in a corner and he said, rookie, why the hell are you guarding me? You're not good enough to guard me. And then I'm going to pump fake, get you in the air. You're going to foul me, and I'm going to drain a 3 right in your face. And a person would tell him, he got me up in the air. I came down and fouled him, and he hit a 3 right in my damn face.
All right, here we go, guys.
I love it. Tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by the Chop Shop, home of the Indiana football and men's basketball coaches shows. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back on this Tuesday. It's Izzo Day. Happy birthday, Tom Izzo. 70th birthday.
Wow.
And I wish I had the energy of that 70-year-old. I can tell you that. That little leprechaun is man, he's a funny person and great, and one of the great coaches ever. Great to be around, great to talk to. Just a normal human being that has a great basketball mind. Mike DeCourcy joins us and knows that more than anybody. 70 years old and still going strong.
That's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
How's Mike DeCourcy doing?
63-year-old and no, I'm just kidding. I'm still doing great.
Man, I watched the Houston, Texas game last night. That was a great game. Goes to overtime, but it really is that game was a microcosm of who Kelvin Sampson's teams are. Tough, gritty. I don't care. At the halftime interview, the lady interviewing him said something, asked about getting an upset, and all he said was, "There are no upsets on the road," and walked away. And he's got. I was, before you joined us, I said, if UConn and Houston are not in the Final Four, I'm going to be shocked. The other two spots, that's going to be the one that's all jumbled up. But Houston and UConn are, to me, just so good. They're so gritty. They have different ways to beat you. I know Purdue is what Purdue is, but Purdue is not a team that has multiple ways to beat you, in my opinion. I mean, to me, it's Zach Edey's always going to be Zach Edey. He's
not. I mean, you have to have multiple ways to beat you because teams are going to sell out to deny him the basketball, and then you have to make shots. So they better have one way.
But he's not going to beat him by himself. It's his supporting cast.
He can come pretty close. Look, they don't like if somebody plays him singled up and he scores 45, Purdue's going to win. And he could do that.
But no one's given up that much. I'm not saying you can just let him go free.
He can get 45 if somebody says we're gonna deny the shooters. You know that's not what's going to happen because they don't trust the shooters at this stage. That's what we saw with Rutgers, that they were going to make the shooters beat them on the road, and they were able to get it done. It wasn't easy. But you have to say you have multiple ways to beat you with Purdue, or you might as well just give it up. Because if they can't beat you from the perimeter at some point or at multiple points in March, then they're certainly not going as far as they want to go.
I agree, but I don't know. I just don't see Purdue as a guaranteed Final Four team. Nobody's guaranteed.
But let me ask you why you're so confident in Houston when scoring is such a chore for them.
Their defense.
I understand that, but scoring is a pretty important part of this. And they are very dependent on two relatively small guards to score for them. And I'm not saying they can't make it because I don't have a bracket. And I could get the bracket and say, oh, wow, no one's got a shot. Or I get the bracket and say them. I mean, it depends. But when I look at Houston, I don't see the wing scoring that a Final Four team usually has.
Yeah,
I see really tough guys that can offensive rebound and put it back. They're not great post options. And I see two guards in Jamal Shedd and LJ Cryer who can beat everybody. But it's really not easy to beat everybody 4 times in the NCAA tournament if you're that dependent on relatively small guards. I think Cryer's 6'2", and I think Shedd's 6'1", maybe something like that. I could be wrong about that, but I have my questions about whether they're built to win it. I know they're built to win, and I love their toughness and their how well they're coached and how committed they are to each other and how willing they are to do the little things to win. But I do worry about the fact that you're looking at a team that isn't built the way most Final Four teams are built now. Now, San Diego State did it a year ago, and they did it with defense and small guards and without great post-scoring options. They did it with defense. So it can happen, but I don't look at them and see automatic because of what I described.
Well, and I agree with you. I'm probably just so fired up from watching that game last night and staying up that late. But because I forget about Tennessee is really good.
Ooh, now there's a team.
Tennessee and Dalton Connect. Gee whiz. You talk about the one that Indiana didn't get that would have changed their entire season.
I think that he would have made a tremendous difference in this Indiana team, without a doubt.
Oh my God. And it's just, but what he is doing, lighting it up. He's killing it. North Carolina back has climbed. They've been on a journey over the last couple of years, and they are climbed up their number up there now. And it's just, it's going to be another fun one, and I can't wait. Wisconsin and Purdue. This Big Ten battle is, nobody saw this coming, I don't think.
What's interesting about that is that, you know how conferences endeavor to make the last weekend really impactful. You want to have your showcase games on that last Saturday or Sunday. And, like Carolina Duke is on that last Saturday, of course, has been forever. Wisconsin's playing Purdue in the final game of the regular season. So I don't know if that just was a toss of the coin or if somebody in the Big Ten office saw it coming. But I kind of think that somebody in the Big Ten office made a heck of a call there. I don't know. You have to give
Indiana plays Michigan State in their last game, so they were probably hoping for something that's not going to be, but the hope was there. But yeah, that's going to be an absolute. That could be the decider.
Yeah, I mean,
Can you imagine if the Big Ten title came down to the last regular season game of the year?
It could very well. I mean, when you think about it, depending on the outcome of this weekend, they're either going. Well, first of all, they each would have to win their first game this week, and they're both playing tough games, including Purdue playing Northwestern. But if they do, and I would expect that they would, Purdue. The same team beating Purdue twice this year, I don't see that happening. When this team is fired up, not particularly happy, they really tend to hurt people, not physically, but emotionally with what they do to their basketball teams. I think that Purdue will win against Northwestern. And then the weekend, Sunday, you've got the game that if Wisconsin wins, they have a 2-game lead. And if Purdue wins, they are tied. That, like, theoretically, like I said, you have to account for the midweek game.
But if Wisconsin gets a 2-game lead, that is going to be a nice position to be in.
Yes. And here's why, because then you probably aren't going to hold both games of that lead all the way through down to that final game. But at minimum, if you get that 2-game lead, if you're Wisconsin, you could maybe find yourself playing for no worse than a tie at home on the final day of the regular season. Because I think this Sunday's game is at Purdue, right?
I believe so. I don't have the schedule pulled up
in front of me
at the moment.
My bad.
I have the Big Ten standings pulled up.
No, I'm sorry. This weekend's game is at Wisconsin. So that game would be at Purdue, with Purdue trying to, again, if that would be for Wisconsin to have no worse than a tie in the scenario that we painted. So I think I think there's a lot of incentive for Wisconsin to be great on Sunday, and they have the opportunity to do it because they'll be at home. So it's this weekend is going to be. I like that college basketball figured out that to pile up a huge schedule of great games on the first weekend without football. That's been something that it has not done often enough. And you look this week, we've got the game we just discussed with Wisconsin and Purdue. Duke, Carolina is this weekend. Kentucky, Tennessee. Kansas has a big game this weekend. So it's a terrific weekend of college basketball that was quite clearly designed to take advantage of the fact that football's off in college, and in the NFL, they've only got one game remaining, and that game is delayed for 2 weeks. So I'm glad to see college hoops taking advantage of that.
Yeah, I'm glad. And the games are they're awesome. They've been awesome to watch. And there's just nothing more fun than sitting, especially on a cold Saturday, basketball games after basketball game. Of course, are you usually in Chicago by then?
I am in Chicago every Saturday and Sunday till the except for one Saturday till the end of the regular season. I'm there every weekend. So we had 8 games on Saturday. We have 8 televisions in the green room, and so you're able to watch whatever you want to watch. It's hard to watch more than one game at a time, especially when we have games on our air. You have to be focused on that. You can only glance at the others during commercials for the most part, or late game situations. But in those moments, like we had a break between our noon, we had a noon game Eastern, and then we didn't have another one till like 6:30 Eastern, I think, something like that. So we had all that time in between, and there were a ton of games on. It was a great afternoon to watch hoops. And as I said, this one will be tremendous. It'll be the best. This will be the best weekend of college basketball that we will probably have until the last weekend of the regular season when they'll stack up some more great games. But there'll be plenty of great hoops on the way.
How many Big Ten teams this year? 6? Can they get 6 in?
I think it'll end up being 6, but I wouldn't rule out a 7th if a Maryland or an Iowa could make a run. I'd say out of those two, probably Maryland.
Oh, I had Maryland in already.
Oh, no.
I think that they're going to work their way in just because of how they may make it, yeah.
But they're not in now, Jim. They've got a long way to go. One of the things that's in their way, and we talked about this on Beyond on Sunday, Big Ten Basketball and Beyond, is they began the day in the 90s. I think they were 93rd in the net. And look, you can make the tournament from the 70s. Michigan State's done it. Rutgers, I think, came close. I think they were like 68. Pitt made last year around 68. So you can make the tournament in that range, but it's not easy. And that's one of the reasons that I believe that Maryland endeavored to, once they got into position to win by 25 or so against Nebraska, they didn't want to let that go. They continued to play pretty hard and with great intent to win that game by as many points as possible. And they're up to 81 now in the net. You want to get that ranking up, even though the committee doesn't use it. They don't go in and say, okay, that team's 40th, so they're in. They don't do that. It's not what it's for. They look at a team that's 100 and they're like, yeah, what are they? We're not looking at them. They're not. Let's not waste our time on number 100. So you got to get up there, and you do that by winning games first, but also with the way the net works and the way Ken Palm works, you want to win by a bunch of points if you can.
Yeah, what's killing them is they've got 2 quad 2 and quad 3 losses. The quad 2 losses are not helpful, but they're 2 and 4 in quad 1s. They've got kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah, and that's why they're not in. That's why they're not in right now.
I didn't realize that they had those quad 3 losses, man.
Yeah, Davidson. Remember, they played Davidson and UAB in a early season tournament, and they couldn't score, and that was their problem. That was their big problem back at the start of the season, and it's still not totally resolved. But their defense has been phenomenal lately. They have been holding high-end teams below 65 points. They've done a tremendous job defensively lately, and the offense has been good enough to produce some good results. But if you look at it over the last several games, I mean, Purdue got 67, Northwestern got 72, Michigan State got 61. They are holding teams that are very capable down on that end of the floor. But then they need to score enough to win. And they did that at Iowa. They certainly did that against Nebraska. Nebraska only scored 51 on Sunday. I believe that was on Saturday. So they only scored 51 points then. So they have played the kind of defense we expected, and now the offense is starting to come around.
Their third worst loss is to Indiana. But we've got to take a break before John wraps me on the knuckles. Plenty more to get to. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network is with us. Back with more, brought to you by Chop Shop Market and Table, where each Monday night at 7:05 you can find Don Fisher and Indiana basketball, inside Indiana basketball. I was there. What is today? Tuesday? Yeah, I was there last night. All right, perfect. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for a home, Mike, I was down in Montverde, Florida over the weekend. And went down there. They have their Montverde Invitational Tournament. Their championship game was against Prolific Prep that had 6 McDonald's All-Americans in it. And the only reason they had 6 is because 2 from Montverde, who were actually voted into the McDonald's game, were not allowed to be on the roster because of a rule allowing only 3 per team.
Right.
And Kevin Boyle was not happy about that. And I get it. I mean, how it's like, I mean, they are what they are. I guess it's not what it used to be. Is what kind of there should be 2 categories, because you cannot compare Montverde to Floyd Central, where I went. This is not; these are 2 different worlds. There should be a group for the IMGs and for Montverde and all the other, and Oak Hill Academy and La Lumiere. Because my God, of course they're going to be better than your typical high school team. They're all like all-star teams.
Yeah,
the talent on Montverde's team is just stupid.
I'm not super crazy about this trend in under college basketball. I don't know if you call it high school basketball anymore. I'm not super crazy about the trend. I don't think it's developing great players generally. I think Kevin is a terrific coach, and don't get me wrong. I think the players there are well trained. I think they're also well trained at IMG and some others. But I don't think that. I think that there's a value in high school players kicking butt, and I don't mean as a team. I mean like one guy's got to do it. 2 guys have to do it. I think that you become a better. I believe that domination is a skill that certain players acquire and certain players don't. And I think when you're LeBron James and you're at St. Vincent St. Mary, if you want to win 3 state championships and lose a 4th title game, you got to do it. It's you. And if you're at Montverde, there's like 5 other guys that can do it on a night. And you need to know that when you get to the NBA. But I think we miss some guys who might be able to become dominant players because they're already learned to be role players when they're sophomores in high school.
Here we go, guys.
Days or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this Tuesday. Thanks a lot for being with us. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News with us. If you have a taste for Wagyu beef, the Voiles family Wagyu from right down the road in Mitchell, they provide beef to Chop Shop, and I've had some of it, and it's amazing. I love Wagyu. I've had, Mike, you've ever had a Wagyu steak?
I have not.
Man, you're missing out. It's something. But in the break, we were talking. I went down to Montverde, and you made a point about missing out on some guys. In their first game, they beat a team so badly. It was the worst beatdown in any sport at any level that I've ever seen. And I'm not kidding. Montverde scored 104 points in the first 3 quarters.
Oh, my God.
I've never heard of that, much less seen it happen, other than, maybe some girls' game where they win 100-2 or something. That doesn't count. This was a prep school from Pittsburgh that they beat.
Hey, they got to ease up on the Pittsburghers.
They weren't missing. I think they were missing a player, Imani Christian.
Okay.
I think they were missing a player, but oh my God, it was amazing. But the second half was all reserves, but we were having a conversation about missing out on guys. There was a kid that came off the bench from Montverde, ended up being the leading scorer in a quarter and a half, but it was because he busted his ass the whole time in there, so much so that I'm like, who's this kid? It just got your attention because he was making the most of his minutes without question, and it was fun. That was fun to watch. But yeah, there's these big schools there's some. Indiana has lost a lot because Jalen Harrelson is at La Lumiere. Is it Kanan Catchings that went to someplace else? And there's yet another one, somebody that I saw that I did not realize was born in West Lafayette. I can't think of who. I just saw that last night. I'm like, really? I hate that. Like those guys are not eligible for Mr. Basketball.
Right. Of course not. They're not playing here.
And so, man, Mr. Basketball in Indiana is like the gee whiz. That is just one of those things that to me is iconic.
Right.
And to give up on that, I know that they're working to be better. And maybe they're making the right decision because I was down in Montverde this weekend, as I told Mike in the break. Those guys are there's no give. They're going 110%. It was amazing how intense that game with Prolific Prep was. I mean, it was a back and forth game. This game was tied with a minute to go, and it was up and down. There was no walking the ball up the floor. It was just hard action, and very, very entertaining, I have to say. It was, the talent was immense, unbelievable to see that. And let me say this. I got to see Cooper Flagg in person, Mike, for the first time. He's okay. He's a badass. Oh my God. And he's relentless. He's a grinder. I mean, this dude is going to make noise next year in college.
Yes.
He can beat and bang with you underneath, and he's not big in that regard. He's not beefy, but he's not afraid to mix it up, and he has a beautiful three-point shot. Just sweet as can be. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy is sickly talented. And he is. And there's no doubt he's the number one player in the class. You see why. He's going to be a difference maker.
Well, I wrote when he signed at Duke or committed to Duke, whichever, I wrote that he's the best prospect that American basketball has turned out since Anthony Davis. I believe that he is that. I've seen people trying to jump past Anthony Davis and Kevin Durant and go all the way back to who, but I don't buy that. Durant, Oden, that Oden Durant class, we knew they were both extraordinary. Unfortunately, Greg's body didn't hold up, didn't support him, but I challenge anybody to watch the 2007 championship game where he basically erased 4 NBA big men by himself. And then the team lost because they didn't close out on Lee Humphrey often enough. But he literally erased 4 players, 4 NBA big guys on his own. He was that good, but his body didn't hold up. But Durant, we knew was going to be great, and he became College Player of the Year and an all-time great NBA player. And then Anthony Davis coming into Kentucky, it was quite obvious he was going to be a difference maker, and he's become an NCAA and NBA champion. And I think Flagg is – I don't know that Flagg is on the level of those players I described, but he clearly is the best that we've had since then.
Oh, and fun to watch because when he's playing, he's playing. He's not loafing. He's not goofing. The game that the championship game of the Montverde Invitational Tournament, with prolific prep, was a great game. It was tied with a minute to go. It was in question until then. Actually, it was in question until he got a block underneath the basket, almost face up with a guy that I think he pinned it to the board. But he was just gritty, grimy in there, mixing it up. And then he steps outside and hits this beautiful swan-like three-pointer that went through the net as if someone from Purdue came down with some kind of calibration and said, okay, it has to hit right here for it to be perfect. And that's exactly where it went through the hoop. It's unbelievable to see those guys. It's when you can stand out amongst a group of 5-star players, that's something.
Oh, exactly my point. Yeah, I mean, on the USA U17 national team that continued the streak of championships that goes all the way back to the start of that FIBA tournament, I believe in 2010, right around 2010. He was clearly the best player out there. He just stands out above everybody. I mean, as wonderful a player as Victor Wembanyama is, he did not stand out at the same level in the U19s that as Flagg did here. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that Flagg's better because he's not 7'4", 7'5", 7'6" with handle and a jump shot, but he's pretty special. I think he has a chance to be truly great, and it's been too much of a drought for truly great in American basketball. We haven't had enough of those guys come out.
He's about to bring it, and he can handle the ball. I saw him bring the ball up the court and not walking it either. So he is definitely a talent, and fortunately for those who have to play him, it will only be for one season because I can already predict he will be the number 1 pick in the 2025 NBA draft, I think. Which that can always change, but man, he just was that good to me. I'm like, what? So there's that. I also got to see Trent, Indiana's recruit, Liam McNeely, who played very, very well. Wasn't the leading scorer on the first night. That's the night that they just kicked butt. Second night, he just went 0 for 5, didn't push it. And I like the way he was still able to affect the game with 8 rebounds, 4 assists without trying to force things. The next night, championship game, he's the leading scorer in the game with 19 points. And it's just his versatility. He can shoot the 3. He can drive the ball. He's a good level-headed kid. But he wants to win, and he's got a great attitude. And that there's so many things that matter that unless you actually get to talk to people or talk to these guys, you can't always get a sense of that. And getting to talk to him directly, he's got a great attitude, and you can just tell he's like, oh wow, that's going to be a great guy to be around and a great guy to have on your team as a teammate.
Right. One of the things I was interested about relative to Liam is I was under the impression he was a wing, and I saw on one of the sites this morning, they project him as a stretch 4. So what did you see?
I see him more as a wing, to be honest with you. But that's what the team that he was playing on, the other night. But I see him as a wing. He's 6'8", and shooting the ball is probably his best asset. But he can take the ball off the drive and get his guy up in the air and no problem driving to the rim. And as a matter of fact, when I spoke with Coach Kevin Boyle, and you can find that at the Hoosier.com, the full sit down with him. He talked about that. He said he's a lot better at these moves than people think. And it's probably because he doesn't have to do it a lot. Oh, but trust me, he can do it. And he's just a smart basketball player. And that's another thing about the guys that come out of play, at least from the ones I've been around from Montverde, they're very smart. They have high basketball IQs. They're good.
Kevin's a terrific coach. He's a terrific
absolutely.
Coach. Yeah, he was a great coach in New Jersey high schools. He's excellent.
St. Patrick, yeah.
Yeah, he does a great job with that. And, Montverde he's a great place to have. He's a great person to have in terms of training, great young prospects. I think that, I have a lot of respect for him and what he does. That collection of talent, I think there can be too much for the players' own sake, because I think that, that you just overwhelm so many opponents just by the talent you have, even though he's coaching them right and getting them to play together and do the right things. I think there can be such a thing as too much talent on a high school team, and I think that they're in that circumstance.
I get that and completely understand it. The one thing I will say is the way they are coached, it doesn't matter who they play. It doesn't matter if they're winning by 30 or winning by 3. They played hard the whole time. There's no let up, and those guys. That's one thing that either he has gotten ingrained into them or it's a combination of the two. But I do love and respect when you watch those guys. They play hard the whole time. They're grinding. They want to just win. And there was even, I've talked about this, but I absolutely loved seeing this kid that came off the bench for Montverde. He got to play like a quarter and a half in the Thursday night game. Ended up being the leading scorer of the game. Just killed him. But he was 6'6", 3-pointers. He had 5 dunks. He had blocks. He had rebounds. He had steals. He was busting his butt for the however many 17, 16 minutes he got to play. He busted his butt for every second that he was out there. And love seeing that. But what's up next for you?
What is next for me? I'm working on some stuff about this weekend's games, some of the big games that we've got coming. So I'm working on that. Got Big Ten basketball and beyond on Sunday night. Also, I'm starting my appearances on Big Ten today on each Friday of the remainder of the college basketball season to talk about.
Now, so what time of day is that?
That's at noon Eastern time.
Okay.
Dave Revson, most often Andy Katz in the studio, and then me from home.
So you're just going to be up there all weekend?
Yeah. Well, no, I do that from home on Friday. And then I fly up there, and then I'm there Saturday and Sunday.
I'm going to come to your house one day and just stand behind you.
There you go. Yeah, they'll love to have you. Absolutely. And then what else we got? I think, and then we'll have Inside the Big East too. My weekly appearances on Inside the Big East, a really fun little show that FS1 puts together. They do a really nice job on that, and I do the insider segment each week, talk about some things going on with players and teams and recruits and that sort of stuff, and have a good time with that.
I can't believe that I got so excited. And I hate to ask, would you have chance to stick around for just a little bit longer after this, or do you have something? If not, understand. I didn't even bring up Indiana that plays tonight. I was so jacked up.
If you want to talk about Indiana at the break, I think we can do that. Yeah.
Okay. I appreciate it. Sorry about that, but we've got more coming up with Mike DeCourcy right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market? Man, I cannot believe how fast those two segments went.
Yeah.
I was like, are you kidding me?
I was wondering, I was like, does he even remember that Indiana plays Iowa tonight? Or are we just going to talk about Montverde for 20 minutes?
Well, it's also fresh in my mind, and there's so much to talk about. But I can't believe how fast it went. My God.
It did go fast. I agree.
I mean, I know I run my mouth a lot. Oh, no, trust me. I listened one day, and I'm like, oh, God. I was like, oh, God, you've got to shut up. Have you started your bracketology yet?
What do you mean?
Your making your brackets?
I've been doing it since mid-December.
Okay, I don't look at brackets until it's like, I'm not looking at those
That's
things.
fair. I get it.
Who's your top four right now? I know Purdue.
Yes.
UConn.
Yes.
Tennessee.
Yeah. No, there are two.
I don't have anything pulled up for me to look at. So,
Carolina.
Oh, yeah, Carolina.
And then the team that you were crowing over for the last 30 minutes.
Houston.
Yes.
What happens if Purdue loses to what happens if they lose, period, before they get to the Final Four this year? That's
Depends
going
on
to
who
be,
they lose to. Like, for me, like if I'm a Purdue fan, I want 10, this is just a hypothetical Purdue fan. I want Tennessee to roll through the rest of the SEC, and I want Houston to stumble 3 or 4 times in the Big 12. Because I think that there's a good chance that Tennessee would be there too. And if I'm a Purdue fan, I don't want any part of that. This is not the Tennessee team of the last 3-4 years. These guys can score because of Connect and some other things. They can really score, and they haven't sacrificed the impact of the defense to do it.
All right, here we go, guys. Available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Rebesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by the Ugly Grouper. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Tuesday, January 30th. Mike, of course, has been so generous to stick around for an extra segment because I ran my mouth so long talking. It went so fast. Talking to him is always so enjoyable. And it was even more enjoyable today that we just kept talking. I kept talking. But I didn't talk about some of the things that I wanted to. First of which, though, the Big Ten going to 15 teams in the tournament next year. That means 3 people, bye-bye, sitting at home. And that's going to be, depending on who that is, the first time not getting to play in the Big Ten tournament. That's going to really stink. That'll really put an exclamation point on your season.
Yeah, I mean, first off, it's not official that's what they're going to do. That was reported last week. I think John Rothstein from CBS reported that. It's not been confirmed by the league. But to me, the more important element of that report, assuming it's true, is the affirmation that they will play 20 conference games rather than advance to 22, which had been discussed. I know it was discussed, and for, I have not followed up on what John wrote, but I know it was discussed to go to 22, and I was never in favor of that.
That would be so bad for the conference, I think.
I believe it would hurt the conference in the NCAA tournament environment. In that world, it would not be a good thing for the league to go to 22 games. I know it minimizes somewhat the attachment between the league members. You would only get with the number of teams they have and 20 games. I think you get 3 2 plays in there. But that's the decision you made when you decided to go to 18 members. That's the choice you made, and so you don't want to reduce the number of occasions on which the league can assert its value on the intra-conference stage, because if you don't get those opportunities to play other leagues, how do people decide what you are as an NCAA tournament team? Or how many teams you get into the tournament based on what? Over the last 4 years, it would have been 10 in 2020. Then it was 9 and was 9 and was 8 and nearly 9. So the league was doing something right in that stretch. And what it was doing was it was going out. It was putting together a vast array of highly capable basketball teams, and then going out and beating teams from other conferences. That's how it got all those bids. And if you limited the number of opportunities to go out and beat teams from other conferences, all you're doing is beating up on yourself for 22 games a year. And I don't think that helps you competitively. And when you're adding the number of teams that you're adding 4 more teams. So you're already getting more inventory for the various network partners, whether it's Fox or Peacock or BTN or whomever. You're already getting more inventory than you already had based on adding UCLA, USC, Oregon, and Washington. So you don't need to go to 22 games to increase the inventory load. You're already doing that as it is.
Indiana tonight at home against the Iowa Hawkeyes at 7 p.m. at the Simon Scott Assembly Hall. And a game, it goes without saying, that's a must-win for Indiana. There's no game that's not a must-win on the remaining of their schedule. But the Hawkeyes are not the Hawkeyes of the last few years. They're just not quite as strong. I'm not saying they're a bad team, but they're just not quite as stiff as they have been. But this will probably still be a formidable task because they're going to push Indiana up and down the floor.
Yeah, I mean, they had pros over the last several years. The Murray brothers, Luka Garza, they had legit pros on those teams. And this team may not have them, but they have Ben Cricky's a terrific player, transfer from Valpo. Excuse me. Tony Perkins has played really well lately. Their guard, playing more in command of the ball over the last few games, and I think it's helped him become more effective. Peyton Sanford had an amazing game on Saturday. Second half had 21 points. Excuse me. And then Owen Freeman's one of the best freshmen in the league, if not the best freshman in the league. So there's a lot going on there. They still score at a really high level, and they still, they're fun to watch because of that.
What is going to be, Indiana has had problems finding scoring outside of Malik Renew and Khalil Ware, and they've been without Khalil Ware here of late. Malik Renew obviously carrying the bulk of the load. Indiana is going to have to find scoring elsewhere. I don't know if Khalil Ware will be ready for tonight or not. I'm sure he'll be listed as questionable. And a lot of rumors about him packing it in
for
the season, by the way. And I'm like, I was like, oh, that's a bunch of crap.
I'm
go,
so
you guys
tired of
gotta
these
stop
kinds of
with that.
rumors, Jim. You know, last summer,
Facebook is
all
just the death of
nonsense.
people.
Last summer, okay, when Aaron Bradshaw was inactive because he had a foot problem, and there were people on the internet saying that he would never play for Kentucky because his agent just wanted him to sign there for the glory, and then he would sit the whole year and he would never play. Okay, so July goes by, or August when they went to the Bahamas, doesn't play. September, not practicing. October, he's not. And the season starts, he's not playing. You know why? Because he had a foot problem. And you know what? He doesn't have a foot problem now. And where is he, Jim? Is he on the floor? I am so sick of this stuff. We shouldn't give it air. We really shouldn't, because it's just nonsense.
Yeah, I agree.
I saw that. I've seen that so many times that players are just going to shut it down because to protect their draft stock. Players play. If they can't play, they get frustrated and can't play, but they're frustrated. And
it does them no good to sit. And sitting does them no good. I laughed at it, but I gave it no more credence, and I have just ignored that crap because it's just so dumb. Other than mentioning here,
Khalil is not a prominent NBA prospect right now. He has a possible NBA future in part because he played and dispelled a lot of concerns about him that were there because of how he played a year ago. But it's not like the NBA guys are lining him up to take in the lottery. Now, it is a really weak draft, so you can say to yourself, well, maybe I can take advantage of that. But if that's the goal, then the best way to make that happen is to play and play well. It's really the only way it's going to happen.
I agree.
He's got to play well.
They take on the Iowa Hawkeyes tonight, and Indiana has to slow their up-tempo game down and do what they want to do. Indiana needs to dictate impose their will. But
that is hard to do, Jim, for a couple of reasons. One, Iowa's really good at pushing the pace. And two, the way Iowa allows you to play invites you to play at a quicker pace. It's fun to play basketball like Iowa plays it. And the teams that get in the arena with them, they've been in a few UFC cage matches, and they say, hey, we're going to get the hoop tonight. And it's kind of hard to not buy into that. But if you do it, you've got to do it well. You've got and the honest truth is that Indiana's a really interesting test case for this, because they just went through a game in which they played a high-level team on the road, did not make a single three, and nearly won the game. So how does it go now when they play a team that is really, in terms of its form, much different? They're built differently at Iowa, and they play differently at Iowa. Illinois is one of the toughest teams in the country to play against because they've got length at every position. They have high-end length at every position. Even their 4 or 5, Coleman Hawkins, is super long for a big guy. So that's hard. They're hard to play against. They're hard to get good looks. They're hard to get penetration. Indiana hung in there. They're doing a lot of hanging in there and not as much winning. But I still believe that they're a couple of players away from being a very capable team, a very effective team. And some of that obviously involves keeping the players you have, or a large segment of the players you have. And then you add Liam McNeely to that, and obviously they're going to need to find a point guard somewhere, whether it's in a high school class or a transfer portal. They're going to need to find a point guard who can really play.
They're 2 guards away from being extraordinarily good.
Well, I don't know what Trey's thoughts are. I've never talked to him. I don't know if you have, but I mean, he's got another year available to him if he wants it.
Indiana's two guards away from being
no. You don't look. If you bring in a shooter like McNeely and the point guard can shoot, it's okay that Trey's not great at that. And remember his numbers are down because there's no Miller Kopp who can really shoot.
Yeah, but he's shooting 40% from the free throw line.
I understand that, but he shot 40% from the 3-point line last year when the attempts were low. Guys get into funks. He's a really good player. If I were Indiana, I would very much want him back next year as a fifth-year guy if he were willing.
Oh, absolutely. But I think he's much better coming off the bench. I think that if he's starting, that you're still not quite to the level you need to be talent-wise. And I don't mean to be disparaging.
No, I mean, no.
He's a good basketball
I'll push back
player.
on that. First of all, the point guard has to be talented. And I don't know whether
that's smart
available or will be available. I don't know because we don't know what the portal is going to look like. So the point. I am assuming in that scenario, if he's a starter, that the point guard is really good, and then you add in you keep Mbako and you add in McNeely and you keep Renew and hopefully you keep Khalil Ware, and that's a team. And I don't have any problem with starting Trey Galloway on that team if the point guard is I don't need him to be like electric, but he's got to be able to pass and he's got to be able to shoot. He's got to be able to do those two things more than anything. And if you go out on the transfer portal and you have choices and you prioritize defense and quickness, I think that's a mistake. You got plenty of both of those. Now, if you can get it and the other stuff, cool. But priority, got to be able to pass and got to be able to shoot. Those are the two things. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of the same problems on this team as you do on this team now. You just might be better at it. You might be, because everybody's more experienced.
A lot of fans are going to love to hear this next one, but the Big Z at Kentucky, how much of a difference has he made on their team, and how much of a difference does he make in their possibilities of how far they can now go?
I don't think he's made much of a difference on their team.
You don't?
And I didn't think he would when he went in there. I thought he would give them another option. He gives them 5 more fouls. If they have a big body problem, and they think that the solution is an opposing big body, they have that now. And Ugo Onyenso is kind of a big body, and Bradshaw is obviously a lean guy who's really dynamic. So if they think they have a big body problem, that might be something. He can shoot the basketball at a much higher level from the perimeter than Aaron Bradshaw can, although Bradshaw's good at it. And Yenso is not a shooter, so he is a defender first and a rebounder second, and he's a option last. You don't want to have to throw the ball to him. He does give you somebody that you can maybe run some things and that you can't do otherwise. But he really struggled in the South Carolina game. He was great in the Georgia game. He was able to play freely and come out and make threes. But I would be really surprised if he played significant minutes against Tennessee. It may be pleasantly surprised because he'd come out and bust another 3 threes or whatever. I don't know. But I would be really surprised if he makes an impact in that game. I think the 2 centers that they had were exactly what they needed, and that Zvonimir Visic is a luxury player for now. I'm glad he's got a shot to try to prove his worth, but I still think that they've got the 2 centers that they need in Bradshaw and Onyenso.
The last thing, Terrence Shannon is really getting hell, which was expected wherever he goes to play right now. And I'm kind of torn on it because I'm like, okay, what if he is completely innocent? And because this is a serious deal. This is not Mackenzie Mbako and his Taco Bell situation, which I'll be honest with you, I'm surprised he hasn't gotten more grief than he has. I'm like, I would be ringing that Taco Bell all the time. Boom, and holding up Taco Bell wrappers and make a run for the border. I'd be doing everything. I think he's kind of gotten unscathed. But Terrence Shannon, Good God, I've seen posts. I saw a post the other day from an Indiana fan that had the word rape just over it and a picture of their gym. And I'm like, wow, wait a minute. I'm like, there is a possibility that he is innocent here. And I'll tell you, Stephen Bardo did a really good write-up on his website, The Tribe. He talked about being accused of rape when he was in college, and that it wasn't true, but it's a good read, and that's what really it gives you pause, because it's like, man, he's going to he's suing for this. He believes this. So when you're that, I hate to use the word convicted to your cause, well, no pun intended there. You got to step back. But I understand at the same time, students and kids are going to be kids. But man, this is just one of those areas where I'm like,
Is there a question in there?
Your thoughts on the situation?
It's a really difficult circumstance that I don't know what the right answer is. I know that Illinois followed its policy, and that the ruling that the judge put down in that case. I had dinner with a friend who is an attorney, and last week, and we talked a lot about this. And that ruling that the judge put down is going to impact a lot of similar policies at a lot of other universities in terms of their athletic departments, how they discipline those athletes who encounter legal issues. It's going to change a lot. And so I think that part of the story has been underreported, what the impact of that ruling could be on conduct policies at other schools. It's going to be much more difficult for colleges to discipline athletes in the way they have over about the last 10, 15 years since reporting on those kinds of incidents became more prominent and more common and wider spread. A lot of the college athletic departments and universities developed significant disciplinary measures that if you were charged with something, that meant you could not play. And I don't think that will be the case any longer based on that ruling. Based on what my attorney friend told me, he thinks that that's going to make it so that you won't be able to do that any longer. You won't be able to say, okay, you're charged, you can't play. You'll have to have some sort of disciplinary mechanism that gives the athlete and the charge more of an airing within the space of your university. You'll have to give it more of an airing and more of an opportunity to be adjudicated on a student conduct basis rather than, let's say, an athlete conduct basis.
Absolutely. Mike DeCourcy, thank you as much as always. The Sporting News, make sure you go to there and follow his content, give him a follow, as well as finding him on the Big Ten this weekend, starting at noon on Friday. Mike, thank you, sir. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Jim.
You bet. Mike DeCourcy joining us. We've got Chronic Hoosier coming up next, and we'll talk more about tonight's game and all that goes therein with this season for the Hoosiers. Back with more, brought to you by Ugly Grouper. The Ugly Grouper down on Santa Maria Island in Florida. Had several people talking to me about it when I came back on my trip, seeing the hat. Back right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Formerly.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, gentlemen. How's it going?
Good, brother. How are you?
Oh, another day in paradise. How are you guys?
Oh, man, if I was any better, I'd be you.
I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
Oh, I went down to Montverde over the weekend.
I saw that. How was your trip?
Busy. Just ironic. I had an Airbnb that was literally, I walked to Montverde. It was just on the backside of their athletic complex. Unfortunately, it was like walking around Indiana's athletic complex. It was that big, but great to see some of that basketball. Great to see some of the talent on those teams. I mean, and Cooper Flagg is a freaking badass MFer.
Yeah, he's the dude.
But Liam McNeely is good.
Did you get a chance to talk to Queen at all?
I did. Hold on, I'll be back up there.
So I've listened to some of the I guess interview that he took of him. He wasn't very revealing of anything. He wasn't willing, you know what I mean? He wasn't really didn't give any indicators, if that makes sense.
Did he mention anything about his timeline?
He said Jim, I don't remember specifically, but I don't think he wasn't very open about that either.
He was. You're not going to play poker with Derek Queen. Let's just say that. I asked about 3 or 4 different ways, and all I got was a no. Nope.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Have you
I remember
thought?
you did mention like is it down to 2? And he's like, no, it's down to 4.
If you could find it, John, we could play that. It would be. Here's my opinion. Oh, I know we're in the break and people can hear me, but if someone asked me my honest opinion, I'd say no way he's coming to Indiana. I don't know where he'll end up, but I think Indiana would be 4th out of the 4 right now. My personal opinion. Part of that is based on, if you listen to my first interview with Liam McNeely, I talked to him, both of them twice.
We're coming back. We can talk about this on the air, though, if you want.
For 90 days, or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Tuesday. That means it's a chronic Hoosier day, and we are grateful to have him with us. How are you, sir?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. How's biz?
Slow, brother. It is slow right now, but
Yeah,
'tis the season. It is indeed.
Indiana takes on an Iowa team tonight. That is, as I talked to Mike DeCourcy, they're not the Iowa teams of past as far as talent, but that doesn't mean that this is a walkthrough by any stretch of the imagination, because that's exactly what it won't be, is a walkthrough. It might be a run through, because Indiana is going to be having to get up and down the court unless they're able to dictate the pace of this game. Iowa usually manages to get Indiana in the flow. And Mike DeCourcy just said, you kind of get caught up in that and you like playing that way. It's fun, but that's not Indiana's game necessarily. I don't know what their game is, to be honest with you. But Khalil Ware, whether he's back or not, that's going to be an important part of this game, because I really wonder what that Illinois game would have been like had he been able to play in that game.
I'm fascinated by that, because I felt that, his absence has forced Indiana to make some adjustments, and not the least of which was going a little bit smaller, which they were pretty effective. I mean, quite honestly. Now there's still a number of flaws, not the least of which being the ability to score the ball from outside, that continue to rear their head. But I think, you even heard Woodson admit so much in his interview yesterday that, they're still trying to figure out what their capabilities are as far as roster control, or as far as lineup management. At the end of the day, though, another game that was seemingly winnable that slipped away, and now you've got 3 losses in a row. Hoosiers have dropped 5 of the last 7 since the start of the new year, and we are quickly reaching the point where you get the sense that the season is fast slipping away from them. And the good news is you didn't see signs of that in the play against Illinois, but we're at the point now where you have to wonder how many more losses the team can absorb before it just really, really falls apart on them. So huge game. One, you got to rest the skid. We talked about that 2 weeks ago on the morning of the Purdue game, just how important this stretch was going to be with Purdue, Wisconsin, Illinois, and then following up with Iowa. I think this is one where the Hoosiers, for a multitude of different reasons, have got to come out and absolutely throw the kitchen sink at Iowa, get back in the winning column, get back to 500 in the conference, and try to figure out exactly what they want to play for going forward. Because a loss tonight, and you're in a world of hurt. You're sliding all the way, further down the Big Ten standings. And, Indiana's completely fallen off the bubble at this point. Now you're talking about whether or not you're going to be NIT eligible. So, unfortunate, but there's still a lot of basketball to play. And I'm not quite there that this is all for naught. The season's toast. But I'm also realistic enough to recognize if you don't get one tonight, you're pretty much cooked at this point. So huge Tuesday night game for Indiana.
Yeah, because they can parlay this if they can pull out the win, and then you have a Penn State team come in. That would give you the opportunity to have 2 wins in a row. Then you go on the road, but you go on the road to a team that you've beaten. Albeit it was at home, there is always that possibility. And for this team to get on a 2-game roll, much less a 3-game roll, would be immense for them mentally, I would think, in every stretch of the imagination. But just at the very least, winning 2 games back-to-back would be some great medicinally for this team.
But, you look at the end game, Indiana's ability to get stops when the game seems to be slipping away from them, and how that breeds confidence and allows them to gain momentum. This is exactly what you're looking at from a season schedule right now. They've got to get some stops. They've got to get some wins in the column, and they've got to get their mojo back here, because it very much seems that Xavier Johnson is rounding back into health. He was effective against Iowa as we've probably seen him this season.
Is that mentally or physically?
That's I think it's safe to say at this point that
I couldn't help it.
No, and it's fair, man. He very clearly is wearing a scarlet letter, and he's probably not going to shed that for the rest of his days in the Big Ten. He's been branded as a hothead, as a problem child, and the referees are treating him accordingly. And that's something that, let's be honest, he earned that rap. He absolutely earned that rap, and I understand the frustrations and everything else that had gone into this point in his career here. But the fact of the matter is, he's on the watch list. Refs are looking for him, and they're going to jump anytime they think his play steps even the slightest bit out of bounds. And it's unfortunate because when Xavier is aggressive, albeit controlled aggression, is when he's most effective, most impactful towards the game. So he's got to find a way as a captain, as a senior leader, to figure out where that line is and stay on the right side of it. Because, if Indiana's going to have a chance in any game going forward, they absolutely need him to be pushing things, but you got to keep it within bounds. The cheap stuff, he's old enough that he has to know when he's crossing that line and stop himself before he does it. And, as we've seen repeatedly now, he's been incapable of doing that, which is really unfortunate, because I think he can do a lot of good things for this team. But, the text, the flagrants, whatever it may be, even just the fouls, you can't hurt your team. That's captains have to take a Hippocratic oath, do no harm to your team. you've got to lead, and you can't lead when you're putting the other team at the stripe and giving them free shots and the ball back afterwards. That's the antithesis of leadership. And to see the pattern that's now emerged, obviously the referees have seen it. Opposing benches are all over him. It's going to be fascinating to see how he manages that over the next month and a half as the season starts to wind down. But end of the day, there's still plenty of pages left to write in his story. But we're also running out of runway here. If Indiana doesn't start making a move over the next 3 games before Purdue, I fear this is when things get really ugly, because you're completely off the radar at this point for any postseason, and it's just too bad, because this is a team that's got a lot of talent. It's just not quite found a way to keep everybody on the same page and healthy at the same time. So it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. We've seen it before. It's how can they grow and learn from it and continue to improve. And I think that's what's kind of gotten lost in this season, with some of the disappointment, the frustration of not meeting the expectations. Is I think there has been a decent amount of growth throughout the course of the season. You look at the way Renew has really established himself as a consistent contributor. Obviously Khalil Ware's popping up on all the draft boards now. Looks like it could be a first rounder. Mackenzie Mbako is finally showing us the attributes that allowed him to get all the accolades coming out of high school. It's just that when all those things are working, and nonetheless you still don't even hit a 3-pointer in 40 minutes, it makes it really difficult in today's day and age. So if those guys can figure out that there is a synergy there and somehow capitalize on that, there's plenty enough basketball left to play yourself back into contention here. But it's got to start now. It's got to start tonight at Assembly Hall against a beatable Iowa team. I think the concern against Iowa is they're going to get buckets. They're going to put the ball up. They're going to get up and down the floor. Indiana's going to have to find a way to still play some defense. I think rebounding is going to be everything, because for a high volume shooting team, the last thing you want to do is give them additional opportunities. And you've got to show me the urgency that you recognize just how perilous the situation, this moment is, and reflect that in your play, reflect that in your rebounding effort, in your defense. And let's see if there's still a glimmer left in this season for the Hoosiers.
Yeah, looking at the quad victories, Iowa is in the same boat as Indiana, winless. Indiana is zip for 7. Iowa, no wins in 6 attempts in quad 1 games. But you go to the quad 2, Indiana only with 3 quad 2 games, 2-1, where Iowa is 4-0. And after that, it doesn't really much matter. Indiana's 10-0 in 3 and 4 quad games, and Iowa is 8-2, which that's kind of ugly, to be honest with you. But that would tell you these teams are kind of evenly matched as far as looking at that. Indiana being at home should be an advantage, but that did not work out for them last year. Although this is not the same Iowa team. This is not the Iowa team of norm I've talked about. They just don't have quite the talent level that they normally do, but you cannot sleep on them, because they know that, and they're on the road, and they're going to do every single thing. McCaffrey is going to try to expose whatever he can to get a win.
Yeah, and this is one of those games though where if Indiana wins it, it catapults them up into a tie for 5th in the league right now with Nebraska. You lose it, and you now find yourself in the bottom third of the league, or right at the cusp of the bottom third. And it's just one of those that really sets the table for the final home stretch as we turn the page on January. I just think this is where you put the abysmal January that Indiana's had behind them, whether it be the injuries, the foul issues, the reputation that's been gained, and really restake your claim as a team that's worthy of competing in the conference, because right now they just don't look that competitive. And I say that they look really competitive. They had the lead for the majority of the game against Illinois. It was just when you see the ball continue to, to go in from deep, it's almost as though they've actualized this now too, that it's not their night, and they've got to find a way to shake that funk. We've heard Worthington talk about how much they shoot in practice, be it free throws, 3-pointers. At some point, you have to actualize that on the floor when it matters. And what a time like the present right now to get some of that mojo back and get on the right track. Because you just feel like this isn't just the season. This is one of those that starts to change the narrative. In the post Trace Jackson Davis era under Mike Woodson, the returns have not been particularly impressive so far. And again, I don't think that's the end all be all of it. But at some point, you've got to show that you're capable of playing winning basketball in a different manner than the past 2 seasons. So I don't know. I just know that it's not going to be particularly fun if they can't pull this one out. So fingers crossed they do it, and let's start stacking some wins back up.
Yeah, even if they get this win, this has to be something that they're looking at to build on next year. And I know that fans are going to say, "Oh no, it's not over." It's over in my mind. Now I don't know what people consider over. I consider the NCAA tournament, but that's that. But just any and everything they do is they build on for next season.
Well, it's a build on for next season. This is also where the rubber meets the road on the recruiting trail. It's been one thing, and we've talked about this in the past. New coaches get to sell vision; they get to sell plans. Now you've got to defend the tape, and the tape hasn't been particularly impressive, and it just makes the hill that much steeper to climb when you find yourself slumping in this manner. When you find yourself getting outplayed, quite frankly. So if talent is the issue, if you need better guards, if you need better shooters, clearly there's minutes available. But at the end of the day, too, winners like to play with winners. Success breeds success. It attracts success, and it just gets that much harder when you were labeled as an unsuccessful team, an unsuccessful program. So just for the hope for the future. Whether it be keeping commitments on the books, getting new ones, you've got to change the narrative. You've got to get some positivity back into print and on the airwaves here. So no time like the present, man.
Chronic Hoosier, thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate you.
Always. Thanks for having me, man. Take care.
Absolutely. Andy Moore brings you Chronic Hoosier each and every week. Up next, Mike Niziolek from the Bloomington Herald-Times joins us. Back with more on Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. Good day, Mike.
How's it going?
Oh, I can't complain, brother. How are you?
I'm good.
What's new? Anything?
No, not much.
Work.
That's right.
Work. Da-da-da-da-da. Work. Da-da-da-da. Work your booty. Work your booty. Man, my phone did an update, and I hate this. There's stuff that ain't where it's supposed to be and stuff that is here that I'm like, what the hell is that? Why are you on this screen? Crazy. Oh, mercy. I'm glad it's a 7:00 game at least tonight.
Yeah, it was nice. I didn't realize that until yesterday.
Oh, man. The sad thing, even that's getting too late for me. Because I'm like, okay, well, that means that's still 11 o'clock. How was your weekend?
Good. Did you go to Illinois? I had an engagement. I couldn't make it.
No, I actually was in Montverde, Florida.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I saw your tweets.
I've been telling me Cooper Flagg, good God Almighty. He's a monster.
Oh, yeah.
and half of that is just mental. He comes to play, baby. Yeah, they're starting 5 for Montverde. LSU, Indiana, Duke, Georgia, and I keep forgetting Baylor.
That's wild.
That's their starting 5. Actually, all 5 were voted on to the McDonald's All-American team. But they only are allowed to take 3, which kind of is bonk. I mean, how'd you like to make the team voted on below somebody above you?
All right, here we go, guys.
For high-quality meats, bakery items, and now fresh seafood. Chop Shop Market and Table has the largest selection of in-house made products around and everything you need to make a gourmet meal at home. Or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville and Evansville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. Mike Niziolek from the Bloomington Herald-Times with us now at Indiana Sports Beat Radio. And Michael, Indiana plays Iowa tonight, and I've been saying that Iowa's not the team that they normally are. A little off, kind of like Indiana. And as I looked at their both quad wins for both teams, pretty similar. Neither have a quad 1 win. They are combined 0 for 13, which I don't know if that has ever happened between these two teams at this time in the season, that neither would have a win of that stature, but they are both goose eggs there. And so that's what we're looking at. And this game is not a quad 1 game. It's a quad 2, where Iowa is 4-0 in those games, but Indiana loses to Iowa here last year, a different team. Iowa's going to try to push the issue on Indiana and force their bigs, especially if they've got Khalil Ware back and Malik Root, to force them to get up and down the floor. And it's going to be up to Indiana to set the pace and for them to dictate what's going on in the game.
Well, yeah, they'll need another strong defensive effort like they had against Illinois. I mean, Iowa's averaging 85 points a game, 10th in the country, shooting 48%. They shoot a lot of shots, too. I mean, they have a lot of offensive possessions. So it'll require, some more, defense like they played and not, like they can't fall back like they played at Madison. They were – but they've done that. They've kind of turned it on and turned it off, and so you want to see the consistent effort. It'll help being at home, but yeah, they really need to lock in on the defensive end.
And while any hopes of an NCAA bid for this team are to me, they're gone, long gone. They can work towards an NIT bid or work towards having a good end of their season, but they have to find something to fight for. That's because that's kind of where they are. I think the NCAA tournament is well out of reach, but you have to have something to fight for. And, normally pride would be enough, but I'm not sure it is in this day and age with people. So what can they find to hang on to?
Well, I mean, you've got guys that have, in terms of Khalil Ware and Mackenzie Mbako, NBA aspirations. Khalil Ware talked about, possibly being one and done before the season. here. Obviously, this is his second year, but I mean, there's that element to it. Guys will be fighting for position in terms of playing times and stuff like that for next season. I think there's quite a bit in terms of individual. If you need to find, your team goals are out of reach, or some of them are out of reach. I mean, the individual, you still have a lot to play for. So we'll see. I mean, I don't think they're conceding anything at this point. I'm sure Mike Woodson frames it a little differently than you did. And obviously, you can make a run in the Big Ten tournament. As far-fetched as that might sound, I mean, that's what Mike Woodson's going to try to do to motivate these guys. But I mean, I think he's going to take it, more, the cliche, the one game at a time, and try to take, this opponent and frame it like that. But in terms of their long-term goals, I mean, they're certainly fading. Then you're running out of time to sort of, come up with answers as you're on this 3-game losing streak.
Yeah, and they are going to have to do some things that they haven't done all year, and that's find good guard play at the same time with integrating that into their bigs. Now you've got Kelvin Ware, if he plays tonight, I don't know if he does or not, coming back off of injury. You've had Xavier fighting injuries, and this is a team that has just been patched up, and they've had more problems than one could imagine.
Well, but I mean, I think their problems, the outside shooting, I think, is something that they just are not going to be able to overcome necessarily in terms of, whatever happens, this team's ceiling, I think, is limited because of that, that they don't have shooters, that, they don't shoot the three, and they don't shoot it well when they do. And so teams, there's a real easy scouting report against this team. Malik Renew has done an admirable job sort of leading the way offensively, but they're just, limited. Mackenzie Mbako is here and there, but he's not consistent enough right now to sort of be able to carry this team or be that sort of, scary second option. And so when you can't shoot it, I just think that it's just tough right now. I just think that they're just limited in what their ceiling is.
Yeah, and the biggest thing is, can you keep some of these guys locked in for the rest of this year? Because I talk about the NCAA tournament is not going to happen for this team, no matter. I don't care what anybody says, and that's a big disappointment. And for the players, there's going to be some of those guys that you're going to have to try to keep locked in, knowing that apple's not out there.
Well, I mean, I don't know about that, because they haven't been particularly focused in game to game this season anyway. So it's not like that they've had this sort of huge chip on their shoulder or huge motivation, throughout the year. So I don't know that that's sort of what's kind of driven this team. I think it's a young group that needs to learn, how to kind of come together on a consistent basis. Mike Woodson's talked about it all year, that he hasn't really figured the group out necessarily, and he's still trying to push the right buttons. Illinois was sort of a step forward defensively, but they played well without, Clearwater against a team, that's ranked in the top 15. But they've played better at home, and sort of that's given them motivation. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just think their youth has sort of been hard to overcome. And, they haven't had the leadership they probably needed to, with Xavier kind of struggling and his injury and his sort of, miscues that he's had recently over the last month. I think that's really kind of set this team back as well.
And there are guys that we don't know who's going to be here next year, and that's twofold. Potentially transfer guys that hit the portal, but more importantly, will or will not Kelvin Ware be able to do enough to draw enough attention for NBA consideration? Because he's on that bubble, so to speak, right now. Mackenzie Mbako, I don't think is on that bubble. And so the worry there would be to keep him in Bloomington.
Yeah, and the decision calculus for guys you never really know. Like Khalil Ware, on mock drafts has been kind of I think recently more of a late first rounder. And is that enough for him? I don't know. I mean, he wanted to go last year. I mean, he wanted to be a one and done in general. So now he's really behind schedule in terms of his goals. Does that keep him here? I mean, I think the other part of this is NIL. I think makes a difference. I mean, you can pitch guys and really make a case for why financially it's not the worst thing to do to stay in college and get that extra year and improve your draft stock. So I think that does help. Mike Woodson and teams like Indiana make a pitch to a guy like a Khalil Ware or a Mackenzie Mbako and say, like, look, if you stay the course, here's our plan, here's our vision for you, here's why that'll help your draft stock.
Yeah, and the other guys that like CJ Gunn and Caleb Banks, those are people that you're going to have to wonder what are they going to do? Are they still going to be able to stay committed to Indiana? Do they feel like that they're growing? There's going to be so many questions with this team, and I think how they finish the season will really shape those questions.
Well, I mean, I think I talked to coaches before the season at Big Ten Media Days, and the answer in terms of the transfer portal was they said, you plan for basically, almost 25% of your roster between, draft and attrition and transfer portal of changing over year to year. So, I mean, you're going to probably lose a guy, one or two of your bench players that, want more playing time somewhere else. So I don't know that impacts, I don't know that the end of the year or how they finish, if they made the NIT or had momentum makes a difference in that realm. Like a kid like CJ Gunn, Caleb Banks, they're going to want to play. And so, if it's not Indiana's, it's somewhere else. And so I think that's what every team goes through, though. I don't think Indiana's different. I don't think Indiana's season this year is going to sort of accelerate or, change sort of what happens in the portal.
Absolutely. Tonight, Indiana takes on this Iowa team. What are your expectations?
I don't know. I think what you've said, when you see that they're underdogs bet on the betting line, I think that's interesting. You could see that this team, is not trusted right now, that they've, been so inconsistent. You'd like to see, at home that they could close this one out. It's a winnable game, I think, certainly. But offensively, they've just been so, think about, they didn't have a three for the first time in 14 years. I mean, it's an incredible stat. I made 3-pointer. Offensively, I just think they're a mess right now. So it's a hard team to sort of trust. If Iowa were hit their season average of 85 points, could Indiana keep pace? But I do think the home court advantage does mean something to this team. They've played better at home this season.
Yeah, we'll certainly find out and see what is made of this team and see exactly what they have for the rest of the season, because this to me is going to be the litmus test. They showed the grit and the try that you needed to see against Illinois. They just could not finish it or get over the hump, as one might say. But that shows that they're still fighting.
Yeah, I mean, that was the effort you needed. But the problem is you're on a 3-game losing streak, and it is tough when you don't see sort of the progress. And I think they do need a win here to sort of pick this team up. And we'll see if they have what they have. I mean, I think it's an important test for Mike Woodson too, in terms of the last couple times they've had losing streaks, this team's bounced back. Can he do it again?
Absolutely. And we will see you there tonight, my friend.
That sounds good, Jim. We'll see you then.
Look forward to it. Mike Niziolek with the Bloomington Herald-Times. Make sure you're giving him a follow and keep local papers alive. Be a subscriber. Always important. And so that's going to pretty much wrap it up for us today. Big thanks to Mike DeCourcy, as always,
for joining us. Great chats on everything there from the Big Ten on down. Chronic Hoosier as well. Shout out a big happy birthday to Tom Izzo. Not only Tom Izzo, but happy birthday, Norman Dale. He is 93 today. Wow. Big thanks to everybody out hitting us up on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. You guys were awesome today, and I wish I could have got to more of your comments, but man, we had a pretty much loaded day. Is like, boy, I sure did miss out on a lot of them. You guys are awesome. And it's not that I ignore them. I just can't always get to them. But thank you so much anyway. Thanks to John, the producer, for keeping us between the white lines. And most importantly, thanks to each and every one of you. We are grateful for you, because without you, we have no reason to be here. And some would say we still don't. But thank you so much. Tonight, post-game show after the Indiana-Iowa game, coming to you right around 9 o'clock thereabouts as soon as the game ends. And we'll look forward to that. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat